What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to episode number 2 of our poker vlog. Thank you very much to everybody that checked out episode 1. It was a massive success. The video got over 300 views in the first 2 days, which is phenomenal for a brand new channel and episode 1. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Before we jump into this one, I want to let you all know it's going to be short. All the footage from my first 3 or 4 episodes are from when I was doing a lot of testing, checking out the angles, the lighting, sound quality, figuring out which seat was the best one to shoot from. And unfortunately, throughout that process, and the thing I failed to consider was a battery source. I'm used to poker tables just having working USB ports in them, so I was like, cool, I'll just charge on the table, right? Well, some of the places we play out don't have functional USB ports. So I missed a couple hands throughout the night. So we'll go ahead and look over the hands that we do have footage for. I'll give you guys the synopsis of the very last hand of the night. That was the biggest one. And then I'll just get you up to speed on the bankroll. So let's jump into it. All right, so we're starting the day in this 1-3 hand with a limp on the hijack with queen 9 of clubs. So our neighbor decides to raise it up to 10 in the cutoff. One of the early position players ends up calling. I'm trying to isolate here. I like my hand, but I don't want to play it 3 ways. So I re-raised to 30, hoping that they'll either just fold or I only get 1 caller. Coincidentally, I get 2 instead. So I probably could have just called the 10, but it is what it is. I like this hand, but I don't like to play it 3 ways because there's a lot of cards that are scary for us, and this is not one of them. This flop was actually great. We flopped top pair with an okay kicker. There are 2 hearts on the board though, so I don't really want to see any more hearts here. I decide to bet 60 into 100 here. This bet sizing is designed to get rid of any face cards that might have stuck around, any king jacks, king queens, ace kings, ace queens, any cards of those natures that we don't want to see basically hit a bigger pair on the turn, and keep around anybody that has any sort of straight or flush draw. So it looks like this is too much for the player in the cutoff because he folds his hand, and then the early position player quickly calls. I think it's fair to say he's on the draw here, so we're off to see a turn, which brings us a queen of spades. This is not what I was expecting, but it's absolutely phenomenal, especially when the early position player quickly checks over to us. I reach for my chips and decide to play for all of it. I'm pretty sure we're good here. I don't expect him to put in the call here because it's a little too much. The game just started and everybody has between 200 to 300 in front of them. Doubt this player wants to play for his entire stack so quickly after just sitting down. I mean, some people might like to gamble, but this guy seems a little bit more conservative, so I really thought this bet would go through, and it doesn't seem to take him very long to make his decision. He quickly folds his hand, and we end up scooping our first pot of the night. On to the next one. We're sitting in the small blind with a beautiful mystery hand when the under the gun player makes it 15, and under the gun +1 very quickly re-raises to $30 here. All the others get out of the way, and it looks like the button is taking his time making his decision here. We're all kind of table talking and chatting it up, saying that we woke up the under the gun +1 player because she hasn't played a hand in a minute. The button comes along for a ride, and now we have an easy decision. Unless we look down at premium here, we're gonna have to fold. And would you look at that, we have the ladies. Absolutely sick spot to be in, but as I'm looking down at my stack, I have a small problem. I don't want to play this pot 4 ways, and I don't have enough to raise people off of this pre-flop. I'm also in a terrible position, so I think the only real option that I have here is to just jam and isolate this with one person who hopefully is just holding ace king or something of the sort. So that's what we do here. We just put it all in the middle. Our neighbor to our left in the under the gun position thinks about it for all of 10 seconds before he says, screw it, let's gamble. And then his neighbor in under the gun +1 very quickly says, I'm all in as well. And she has us both covered. And then the guy in the cutoff, I thought he was on the button, but he's actually on the cutoff, is staring and is also considering making the call. How many pairs of aces are in the deck, guys? I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if we're just absolutely dominated with aces and kings here, or if we're just playing in DGen Central, because This is just absolutely nutty. We have a 4-way all in. The jam did not work. I might as well have seen the flop and just folded to overcards, but here we go. Number 1 shows king jack of spades, and the board comes out with 2 spades. He turns his king, and the river's a 3 of clubs, which is inconsequential. The cutoff shows pocket sevens. I show my dominated queens, and then under the gun +1 shows aces to scoop up this $1,000 pot. Oh no, we were behind from the start. We didn't have a chance, guys. We were drawing to 2 queens. It didn't hit, and well, that's poker. Easy come, easy go. At least it happened at the beginning of the session, so we can fire another bullet and keep on with the night. We're coming into this hand a bit late here. It looks like we have 4-way action. The pre-flop bet size was probably around $15. Just looking at the size of the pot here, we have pocket 6s and flopped a set with an ace high board. We're a couple hours into the session and we've been pretty card dead. We've seen a few flops up to this point and just keep missing everything, so we just have to fold our hands. We've lost about half our stack at this point, so it's good to see some action and some money going into the pot when we flop a set. There's about 98 bucks in there, so I end up just jamming for 100 and some change here. I'm pretty sure we have the best hand and I want to charge the draws the maximum. We've been running like absolute garbage this session. We have won a couple big hands that you guys have seen, but then we just keep punting it all right back onto the table. And you know, punting it isn't even the right word. We're just literally card dead. We're sitting and playing patiently. It's been about 6 hours at this point. Looks like the big blind makes the call, which we're happy to see, and then the other 2 players get out of the way. So going to the board now. Oh man, I hate being in these spots, even though we got it in good. The 4 of diamonds comes on the turn and the queen of clubs comes on the river, and our opponent shows us a whiffed flush draw. Jack high flush draw at that. Thank you for your contribution to the Bank of Monte. We're starting this hand off with a $6 button straddle. I go ahead and call. The big blind gets out of the way. We have 2 players down the line also call, which induces yet another call, and then the cutoff call with a button check. I limped into this hand because I was expecting somebody to raise with king 10 here, and the raise never came through, so that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. When we flop 3 of a kind on a totally uncoordinated board, this is just about the best flop we could have seen here. I go ahead and check the action over to the later position players. There's a lot of people in this hand, so I expect somebody to take a stab at it here. It looks like somebody gets feisty with the $8 bet, trying to get through another 4 players. It's relatively small, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in the call here. There's a lot of pocket pairs that would call on this board, below the 10, above the 10, even just ace X that would call here, so I don't want to let them know what I'm holding. I go ahead and check a second time. Sucks that we're out of position here, but it is what it is, and unfortunately the check gets through. Then we hit a king on the river. So not sure if you noticed, but we are ridiculously short stacked yet again, running like garbage even after we won the last one. So I go ahead and just shove here for the rest of my stack. At this point I'm like super annoyed and tilted. I've been winning a couple of big pots and building up these big stacks and then just donating them right back to the table. We've been running like crap, but I'm also just playing like garbage because I'm annoyed that my camera keeps dying and that I can't record the big wins. Feel like it's severely affecting my play. Every single poker player has had this night before. It's definitely one of the worst things to experience, and no matter how many times it happens, it does not get any easier. I didn't do a full rebuy, but I definitely reloaded my stack back up to 200, so I'm really hoping that we can hold here. There's not much that we're really losing to here besides pocket kings though, or pocket 10s, which is impossible since we're holding a 10. First villain puts in the call, and then the second villain takes some time to think about it, but he also ends up putting in the call. I show him the full house. First villain shows us ace 10 off, and his neighbor shows us 7-9 suited for the rivered flush. I'm glad to be scooping up this pot, but shortly after this hand, we got felted yet again. This was one of the worst poker sessions I think I've had in literally months. Not only were we running bad, but I was also just struggling to keep up with the camera. I was not prepared for the new set of tasks that come with recording while playing, especially since I hadn't figured out some of the fundamentals. I won't bore you with every detail, but essentially I was just tilting myself because I was either missing content for the vlog or I was missing information at the table. Either or, both were tilting me, and I was losing a lot of money because of it. I recognized that I was tilted, but I was stubborn to fire another bullet after getting felted again, so we end up being in for a total of $750 on the night as we move on to the next hand. So to follow up with our donk theme of the night, we are limping into this pot with Jack 10 off under the gun. Why, I don't know. This is not in my range, especially not for a limp. But yeah, we're just trying to get into every pot because we're a donkey and we're just trying to see some flops, right? So we end up putting in the call for $15 here. It looks like under the gun +1. Miss Margot also decides to come along for the ride, playing this hand out of position like a total dummy. And we hit top pair here, but I have no idea if it's good because it's hard to put our opponent on anything. So I go ahead and just bet $25 here. That gets Margot out of the way, and the pre-flop aggressor has not seen enough yet at this point, so he puts in the call. At this point, I'm pretty sure he also hit a jack, but he could be calling us light, so we'll see what happens on the turn. So we hit top 2 on the turn. Now we have a hand. So I go for a bet sizing of 50 and throw that in the middle, and then our opponent just grabs a bunch of black chips and throws them down. So I misunderstood what he was doing. I thought he was going all in, so I responded by grabbing my stack. Luckily, he didn't see me do this. He may have folded the river if he had seen how quickly I was going to snap call his all in. So he goes into the tank here, really, mumbling to himself. He keeps repeating, two pair. I'm pretty sure he puts me, maybe not on Jack 10 specifically, but at least any 2-pair holding because he does not want to put in the call. I think he has a strong jack, like an ace jack, king jack, maybe queen jack at the very worst, but he definitely has at least top pair here. So begrudgingly, he huffs and puffs, puts in the call. I show him the 2-pair, and with discontent, he just mucks his hand while chewing the dealer out. And that brings us to the end of our recorded hands. So now we'll get into the biggest blunder of the night. Gotta fix that. Now, this is something that I was debating not telling you guys about. I was actually going to cut all the footage from this video completely out since the session kind of went poorly and I missed so many hands, but I promised everybody transparency and I felt like it was going to be a complete and utter lie if I didn't keep this in. So we played for another hour or so after that last hand, ran up the stack to about 500. We were getting close to leaving and I was only going to be down 200 and some change on the night. We got into a situation where we called the reasonably sized bet pre-flop with pocket 8s. The action went 5 ways and the flop came out 10 high. At this point, I didn't want to continue, so I was just going to check fold to any bet. The flop got checked, the turn got checked, and I caught a set of 8s on the river. The board was connected, but it required gapped cards for anything to get there. For example, a 7-9 or a 9 jack. There were some open-ended possibilities on the flop that missed. There was a potential flush on the turn that also missed. And with my set of 8s, I felt very comfortable firing $40 into a pot of about 100. At this point, a player on my left that had been loose and aggressive all night decided to jam. He had me covered twice over, and on a normal night, I probably would have snap folded this. Even though there were some straights on the boards, I felt like this player didn't have it and was trying to steal the pot with 2-pair or worse. Even if that was my gut instinct, at this point in the night, about to get up and I'm only down 200, there was absolutely no reason for me to risk my entire stack to find out if he had the straight or not. If I was right, I was going to be up on the night, but if I was wrong, I was going to be stuck 750 and I wasn't in a place to grind it out for another 5-6 hours to get it back. I ended up putting in the call even though I knew it was a bad idea, and my opponent showed me Jack 9. He had the nuts straight. Absolutely sucked. Wanted to avoid talking about this. Didn't want to own up to it, but it is what it is. We all do it and we have to be honest about it. Otherwise, we can't improve as players. Pulled up the Bankroll app so you guys can see the absolute donk sesh that we had, and I'll give you guys a quick update on the following couple sessions. So here are the 2 sessions from Outlaw that we talked about on episode 1. Episode 2 was Central Coast Casino, but I'm also going to include the Shoemash Casino sessions in this video. I tried to record at this casino, but unfortunately they don't allow it. I tried it anyway and got asked not to record a few times, so I'm just going to stop doing it. I'll try to avoid playing there so we can get actual footage for the vlogs, but it's going to be on the stats, so I have to show it to you guys. We bought into the session for 300. Stack was fluctuating up and down throughout the majority of the night. At one point we got short stack, so I reloaded the stack with the rest of the cash that I had on hand. So we were in for a total of 350, and after about 5-6 hours we ended up losing all of it. At this point I didn't have any more cash, I couldn't play any longer, and I was just flat out embarrassed. One of my good buddies was at the table that I've been playing with for a while, and he offered to front me 300. I didn't tell him anything about the situation from the night before or that I was out of cash that night. I just said I was out of cash and got up, and he looked at me and said, "Hey, do you need it?" We all hate using the ATMs because they charge fees. So he's like, "I'll spot you." I thought about it for a second, and I wasn't playing anywhere near as bad this day as I was the day before. I was just getting really unlucky with runouts, so I took him up on the offer. And we proceeded to run that $300 up to over 1,000. So glad that I took him up on it. It only took an hour. We were on a total sun run, and we cashed out over $1,000. The next session that we played was the following day on the 1st, also at the Shoemash. For this one, we bought into the 1-2 game for $60 and cashed out 67 while we were waiting for the 2-3 game. game. So then we sat down at the 2-3 table with our whopping $7 of profit, put in an extra $200 there. And for those of you watching that don't know, this game is capped at 300 for the buy-in. And then we cashed out 976. And here's a photo of that bad boy as well. So we have 2 racks of red, and then we have a couple of singles sitting up here in this corner. And that was it for our shoe mash sessions. So at this point, this is what our graph is looking like from 12-8 to 1-1. We were initially down $600. This was the Outlaws day, and then we were up, you know, to 85 because, you know, we were down 6 and then up 685. So we cashed out the $85 profit, and then we took a massive swing with that $750 loss back to down negative 665. We got a little bit back up the following day at the shoe mash, so we were only down 240. Then there's that $6 pay jump from the 1-2 game, and then we ended up being $536 in the red. So took a massive loss. Luckily we got it back almost immediately. Wish we could have picked up some of those hands because there was a lot of great hands that day, but we can't catch them all. So I think that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. Sorry it was less poker and a little bit more of us just hanging out. Promise to bring you guys a lot of action. Episode 3 is going to have plenty of hands for you guys to watch, and episode 4 is going to be an absolute banger. Anyhow, thank you all for watching. Please comment and subscribe. Feel free to discuss any of the donk moves I made in the comments below. And you know what? Tell me about your guys' worst beat this week. Give me either a bad beat or just a hand you really should have folded. All right, take it easy, everybody. See you guys next week.